All right, guys, so I'm going to share with you today the journey to 200 listings. It took about eight to 9 years. What happened with our first listings, some of the pain points that we experienced, and sit back and enjoy. So originally our first, and I go through this in my blog, originally our first sort of experience with Airbnb was just renting rooms in a house that we were renting, and we were doing it just to make ends meet. So we were booking them out at $50 to $55 a night with a $10 or $15 cleaning fee. And so we started getting 5 or 6 bookings a week out of that, and we sort of said, well, hey, we could do the second room. So we started doing the second room. And then this kind of evolved into we can actually rent out other people's places. So originally we started the business as we were going to lease other people's places. And so we went through trying to lease, trying to do this stuff. We just couldn't get traction. People weren't renting it to us. Agents would say no to us. You know, owners were like, we just don't think that you're going to make money, so we don't trust it. And we just couldn't land these properties. And it's not to say that it's impossible. Other people have done it, but we just didn't nail it. And then we ended up being a co-host for a girl that was going to the UK for 6 months. So we did a contract, we signed her up, and boom, like that was our first listing. And I remember saying to Jessie, like my wife, I said to her, like, if we got 20 properties at an average of 50K GBV, so gross booking value per annum, that's $1 million worth of revenue, right? And we would take 20% of that. That's 200K a year. It's like, that's a lot of money. And we kind of laughed about it, and then we're like, yeah, we should actually pump this. We should do it. So that was kind of the beginning, and we just kept growing it from there. We grew it out of our house. We had cleaners in our driveway. We had a laundry in our shed. We were going out and seeing clients on a Saturday and having them going and picking up furnishings from IKEA on the weekends. And we had our lounge room filled with furniture at one point. It was insane. And we had a lot of struggles throughout, but man, like we learned so much, and we really just hustled our way through it. And then we ended up getting our own office and getting staff, and we learned a lot. We set up our own laundry in the office with commercial machines, and some of those things, like we just vertically integrated. And there was a lot of, like I said, there was a lot of hard times. Early on, one of the biggest pain points about doing this type of stuff was kind of teaching other people to do the things that we were doing. So instead of us being involved in the business all the time, teaching people and documenting the procedures and so that's something that, going into this, if I was to give anyone some advice, is to start documenting everything that you do, right down to, how you set up the beds or how you do the listing description and all the little nuances, write it all down, or even just voice record yourself or video record yourself, because those pieces of information become the Bible to hand over to someone else, and you don't realize you need it until you need it. And generally that's when you're so busy that you need someone else to do it and you don't actually have time to train them. So that was actually a big part of our journey as well, was teaching other people to do it, but not having the documentation and, bringing people on and going, yep, we're going to they're going to save the day. They're going to know how to do everything. But the reality is we didn't prepare them enough to know everything, because we weren't prepared to document everything. So that we did get there in the end. Like, I'm not saying that it's something that stuck around, but for a long time we struggled with bringing people on, teaching them the way, and then having very high expectations to, what should be done, what they should be doing. And the reality of it is, being a business owner, is that no one's going to ever do it the way that you will do it, and they'll never do it to the standard of what you will do it, but they will add their own flavor to it. And you have to start getting comfortable with that, especially in the beginning. They're going to operate at maybe 50 or 60% of what you can do. And, and that's not to say that they're going to stay there for a long time. Some do, some don't. And that depends, it's a reflection of how good you are at training, and also the reflection of the person as well. And maybe how good your culture is, how much you care for your staff, and how good your training is, and things like this. So we were very fortunate because we found we had some really, really good staff, and they stayed with us for nearly the whole duration of the business, like 5 and 6 years out of the business, which was operating for 8 years. And they were with the business on the handover, with the sale of it. So we had some really, really great people that were experts across multiple facets of the business. So if there's any tip that I'd give people that are, in any business really, not just short-term rentals, but in any business, is document everything that you do, and then you work with your team and work out where the gaps are, because that's always going to be a reflection of what you've documented down, and and what you've been able to teach them. I would say that, especially with short-term rentals, there's really obvious points where people get stuck. When I say people, I mean operators. 10 to 15 to 20 properties is generally when you're going to have a cleaner crisis. You'll start to experience, maybe 3 or 4 check-ins or check-outs on the same day, and your 1 cleaning team or 2 cleaning teams, or however many you've got, are going to be under the pump, and then other days you're going to be completely dead. So you have these cycles, and this is where you start to run into some problems here. You don't have enough money for putting people on full time. You don't have enough work for that, but you need them on these specific days as surge volume, your Mondays or Sundays for checkouts, etc. Fridays for check-ins. You have these surges, but then you can't give them work on a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Tuesday or something. So that becomes a problem about 15 to 20 listings. 30 to 40 listings, then you're scheduling and, some of your linen stuff, depending on how you work it out. You're starting to do, depending if you hired them or contracted them for cleaners, you're starting to do either payroll for people. You really have to start honing in on, because there's going to be people that are working autonomously. So if you're paying them per hour, or per job, this is where quality control comes in, and you can either go really over budget or your quality starts to get poor. So you end up trying to put out these fires. And at this point, you need to be doing a lot manually, unless you start putting in business processes to automate things. Around about 50 to 60 listings is where you'll cap out as a solo operator if you're running the rent roll and cleaning, logistics and everything as a single person, or even a couple at some stages. Because at this point, to get up to 70, 80, 90 listings, you're going to need someone who can hire cleaners, who can handle after-hour calls, who can handle all these obscure phone calls on the weekends, after-hour calls, key call-outs, scheduling maintenance, etc., etc. The volume starts to get so large now at this point that you need to hire someone, but you also don't have budget to hire someone. So you're kind of bringing someone in knowing that you're losing money for the next 3 to 6 months, and you've got to scramble to put on another 10 to 15, 20 listings to be able to pay for that, having that person there, or you just you lose a little bit of money to scale, and that's normal. So that's a point there, and then it's generally around about the 10, every 10 increments. So about 100 properties, you're really getting to a serious scale now. And the things that you kind of experience are, you have to put managers in over other people, over virtual assistants or guest communications. You have to really lean in on automations at this point, because I know for our business, we were doing 180,000 guest messages per year. and without automations in there, like either just, cookie cutter messages that are scheduled or AI automations, you just chase your tail around. So at this point, you really need to lean into like operational efficiency and more so like the documenting of procedures as well, have very clear cut SOPs. So that's important. 100 to like 150, you are pretty much, you'll set up your management team and you would be filling in extra labor. So you'll be bringing on extra cleaners under the same cleaning manager. You'll be bringing on extra guest services team under like services manager. You might have a client relationship manager and like a BDM at this point. So then you're bringing on assistants under them. So this is actually a pretty sweet stage. You can scale quite well and you're really adding in variable costs. And the costs, you can actually put in like a part-time guest services person or a part-time VA and then scale them up to full-time. You can afford to have a little bit more fat around because your revenue is allowing for it as well. 150-ish upwards, it's same sort of stuff. Like you're really leaning into operational efficiency now. Like you might be hiring consultants to come in to help you with automations. You might be talking to different consultants or third-party contractors to help you with like efficiency of your cleaning business, or you might be purchasing machinery, or you might be exploring different ways to really optimize the operation. But in this stage here, from what my experience was, it was all about like optimizing and cost reduction. And then also like you're at the scale now where you can easily put on a listing and lose 2. So you have to like start investing in your marketing a lot more, doing marketing campaigns. You might even get a company to help with marketing. Word of mouth, you're really getting to this scale now, like the 150-ish, and we got to, like I said, about 200 listings. We were managing over the full 8 years. I think I worked out it was about 350 listings, but in this point here, 150 to 200, churn becomes an issue. And when I'm talking about churn, like I said, you might put on one property and you might have 2 go off. Especially in the Australian market right now, people are selling their property. They're selling it because the market's hot. The market's high. They want to unlock that capital. They might refinance. So there's a lot of that stuff going on. Or some people might be looking for a better deal, like go to a different manager, or they might be unhappy with the return that they're getting, or different things like that. So we had a couple of situations where clients had sort of said to us, hey, you're a little bit too big. Like you're a little bit too big, because we were the biggest in South. You're a little bit too big for us now. Like we liked it when it was just, you and Jesse and a couple of other people. But now it's kind of like I'm talking to different VAs and different people. We only got that a few times. But some people really want to just deal with like one person. They want a small operator. So yeah, sometimes that happens, but for various different reasons. So churn becomes a big problem. You're trying to like put on listings and they're coming off. So I think that covers most of this. If you like that, like and subscribe. I post down below if there's any other questions that you have about Airbnb or any of the stuff that I've got. That I've talked about, sorry. And yeah, I'll maybe post another video or touch on it a little bit, and or any other topics that you want to hear about. But yeah, peace.